Do you really know why you are doing what you're doing in your business? In today's episode, I had the pleasure of talking to Skip Johnson. Skip is the co-founder of Tailwinds Group, but he's done a bunch of stuff. He is an entrepreneur himself. He built a financial services company that was at one point one of the fastest growing companies in the country. He exited that business. He's been a real estate investor, and he is a wealth of knowledge and a great resource in getting real about what motivates you. And all that is really important when you try to define culture, when you try to define goals, what you want out of your business. So Skip is really helpful, this conversation. There's a lot there to just frameworks and things to help think through those things. Take a listen. Hope you enjoy. All right. Welcome to another episode of Aleph Ventures TV. Excited to have Mr. Skip Johnson on with me. Skip, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Hoken?
Good, man. Good. Looking forward to this conversation. You have, right now, kind of the primary lead on your LinkedIn is co-founder of Tailwinds, though I feel like to just say that is to leave off a bunch of stuff that you have done. And so I want to get into that, but you've done some really cool consulting with the board of Aleph, and I've heard a lot of great things. Excited to talk with you about your experience and how that shapes some of the work that you do with Tailwinds and frameworks. But maybe just to start, for folks who don't know you, give us the background. Like what have you done thus far leading up to Tailwinds when we start there?
Yeah, you bet. And there's always a story, right? Like there's the headline version. And I got a pretty good sounding headline version, but I want to, for the viewers also go like a layer deeper into some of the scar tissue that got there. So I had the chance, I've been an entrepreneur really about half my life, last 20 years or so. And shortly after getting married, was in a sales gig. Someone recruited me to the financial services world, said, I think you could be good at this. I didn't even know how to spell, IRA, or 401k. It was like kind of a foreign world, but did find that I was relatively effective connecting with business owners and getting to know them, building relationship. And that really took off. Ended up kind of making it to a top sort of sales position in a previous company. And in 2012, with my wife's blessing, we decided to launch our own thing. We just had our own kid, or like our first kid. Sayla was a year old, and I was 50,000 miles a year on the road. And this decision point was, I don't know that I can be the dad and the present husband that I want to be, and like achieve my goals financially in this business. And so maybe in early principles, I met a mentor who said, I'll show you how to grow a great business. And he was in Milwaukee, and he said, I've got a template. I'll kind of teach you this. I paid him a little bit of money, and like 26 years old, like we launched our own thing, put up our shingle, and like, I hope somebody will entrust this kid with money. And it was like me and one other guy in a broom closet of an office, and the headline version is went really, really well. We made Minnesota Fast 50, fastest growing company in the state, Inc. 5000, best places to work. Like it kind of rocket ship to where we had 50 team members, thousands of families that we worked with. We were managing like $1 billion of assets, and culminating in a successful sale and exit. Like that's the headline version. And all that's true. The reality is a lot of what I've learned and a lot of what I get to bring to leadership teams now comes out of the pain of growing something where I was a bottleneck, growing something where I didn't know how to have it be bigger than me. Like my ego was pretty central and involved. Growing something that as it got bigger, like it felt like I was just white knuckling growth and working harder and harder. And I'm capable of hard work. Like I've got a good work ethic. I was an athlete. My dad was a coach. Like, but there's a breaking point. And so come 2019, I didn't know it at the time, but I was burned out. I was having health issues as like a, you know, 30 some year old, like former college athlete. And I just like, I hurt and I'm tired, and started to realize that, like the way we were growing a business wasn't sustainable. Um, there's only, you know, like, I don't know, it's probably talking to some of the painting businesses that are watching. Like, if you think of doubling your business, can you work 2 times as many hours as you are today? You know, how about 10x in your business? I guarantee you can't do 10 times more, you know, bids and estimates and whatever. Like, but a lot of the way we were growing was just white knuckling growth, and trying to get marginally better, and it just was leading to like my wife and kids getting the leftovers, and you know, we righted the ship and did, I would say, through a God encounter, you know, Jesus made it clear that he had a next chapter for me. So I was able to sell and kind of move into what was next. But there's some scar tissue in building the wrong way. And it informs a lot of what I talk to with people. So let's say about 4 or 5 years removed from that sale, had the chance to do a lot of investing, a lot of cool retreats and stuff that we do around what we're passionate with at church. And a couple of years ago, got to start kind of working with leaders of fast growing companies, and just being a guy who sometimes is like, I just was like a little bit ahead. Here's what I would do differently. So learn from my mistakes. That's
I love
that's some
that,
of the
man.
story, but you know, had the accolades, also had the burnout. And I believe you don't have to choose one or the other. Like, you can have both, but you have to choose to build with intentionality.
Can I ask if you get back into your mind, your heart, whatever during that period of like rapid growth? Because like you said, that headline, you know, reads real nice, and
Mm-hmm.
especially for most entrepreneur types, it's literally almost like growth is just part of the package. If you're an entrepreneur, like
Yeah,
growing is
yeah.
something you're not going to meet somebody who's truly an entrepreneur who's not growth orientated. But in my experience talking to, you know, hundreds and hundreds of business owners, growth is always like there's different motivators. I'm just curious, like for you during that time, you were white knuckling it as you look back, but at the time, like what was driving you? What was like, why did you
Yeah.
want to grow like that?
I kind of thought you were going a different conversation or different direction. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, oh man, we're going deep here. You want to know my motivation? At some point in
Let's
my
bring it.
lifetime, I decided that my value was contingent on like my performance and my output. Like, and so going real deep, growing up, academics, athletics, things like that, where performance was praised. And so I was always trying to be enough to be something. And so I just noticed like I'm wearing a nice watch. Well, this like used to mean something to me. It meant like, hello world, I've arrived, or like we were a member of a nice golf course. Like, am I enough yet? And I'll tell you just very frankly, that is an exhausting treadmill of a journey. Is what happens. And okay, there's other parts that come out of that. I grew up in a family that didn't have much. I didn't know it at the time, but we probably should have been on food stamps or government support, through my dad's kind of pride and things. Like, we never would have accepted that. So we struggled. I was always this good little saver. I'd mow lawns and things, not spend my birthday money. And I remember my mom needing to borrow $20 from me like pretty regularly. And I thought it was cool as like a 7 year old. Mom would borrow $20. Like a week or two later, I'd get it paid back plus like $1 of interest. And so like they did it like they were teaching me about finances. What I understand and what I started to realize later was that was to pay for the groceries, because there was too much month left at the end of the money, to where my parents literally needed to borrow $20 from their 7 year old so that we could have food on the table.
Hmm.
So you combine um, academics and athletics and stuff like that, performance being really important and praised, and also growing up in, like, we always had enough, meaning like I didn't go hungry, but scarcity, those two combined to make me, I think God blessed me with a bit of talent and work ethic, kind of a machine who chased the next rung on the ladder. And if I'm real honest on this, there was fear, and it was this unnamed fear of scarcity. Of I never wanted to go back to that time of like, what if I slow down? I really didn't think we were going here, but it's okay. If I slow down, if I stop, it will catch me. And it was some unnamed, faceless fear that if I slow down, scarcity and poverty may catch up. So I need to outrun that thing. And the challenge was, or the problem and the blessing is, I was really good at it. And the world praises it. And so the world validates you as you start to succeed, and there's awards and accolades. Those two things, fear and believing that I'm only as valuable as like my next achievement, put me on a path that honestly, Hogan, could have probably imploded my marriage without some, redemptive stories and wake up calls and times of slowing down and reflecting at what really mattered. Because if you cut me, I'm going to bleed Jesus and love for my wife and my daughters. But the way I was moving was showing what I valued was success, achievement, chasing money, accolades. And so it took a reflection to go, you know what, this really matters. And I had to then sit with, who am I if I'm not, constantly breaking a record or getting the next level or whatever it was. And part of the me maybe you get to experience, or your partners get to experience now, is like, I'm pretty comfortable just being me. But there was a time that like, I thought I had to be something to be enough. So there you go. $20,000 of counseling later, there's the answers.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you sharing that level of depth, because one of the things that I say about the painting industry is there's lots of accidental entrepreneurship. So almost to a T, all the business owners I've talked to, they did not, like when they were 17, wake up thinking, or they weren't telling their buddies in high school, like, man, I'm going to run a painting business, a successful painting business one day. Right. It's in between jobs, lost a job, wasn't sure, couldn't get hired. There's a lot of that. And it's like, well, I painted a little bit in high school, or I painted a little bit in college. And then I find myself as a painting business owner. And there is a little bit of that, like, I was broke and I was doing this just to survive. And it's like, I just kept going to kind of run to, like, I don't want to go back there. I do think that happens quite a bit. How did you become aware of everything you just shared? Like, I mean, you kind of gave mention of the kind of counseling thing, but like, because it's one thing to be operating out of that. It's a totally other thing to be aware of it.
Yeah.
So, what helped you become aware of that?
I would say probably two things. One is, it seemed like it wasn't working anymore. Being worn out, being constantly tired, feeling like you're just always behind, like the weight and the burden of a growing team, the immense kind of crucible of pressure. And then in some areas of like looking at my bride, who I deeply love, and her being, saying things that I'd get super defensive about. She's like, I thought we started the business to have time and money. Like, the money's great. We want you. And I, of course, would respond with what I now call the entrepreneurial lie, which is, honey, I'm doing it all for you. Like, I'm doing it all for us. We're doing it for the family, the kids. So one is it just wasn't working as well. Like I was like, for a while, and we could maybe hit this too. There's 7 stages of every organization in business: early struggle, fun, Whitewater, predictable success, and might be a good framework for us to hit at some point here. But
yeah,
there was a time you're like, we're winning, we're having fun, like we're making some money. We could like buy a property, fix up our home. But eventually, when you're winning in business, that does lead to complexity. And it just got to where I couldn't white knuckle it any further. Number 2 was going to It was a thing called Ultimate Leadership. It was with these guys named Henry Cloud and John Townsend. They're these clinical psychologists. They're big consultants, kind of Fortune 500 world. They wrote a tremendous book called Boundaries. It's probably their most well-known book. Anyway, I go to this thing called Ultimate Leadership. It's gonna be good. It's a week in California with these, fancy people. And I mean, tell you what, like the reality was it was like $4,000 to get kicked in the nuts. Like, I mean, it was like it was a disruptive, like taking the time out of my world to engage and realize like that I was walking around angry, scared, like a poser. You add those kind of things together, it just was a disruptive, like the two combinations led to this isn't quite working how I wanted. How about, is there a different way to do this?
Hmm. I love that, man. And on your website, Tailwind, something you guys like, growth without compromise. So, like I mentioned, growth is, if you're an entrepreneur, that's just part and parcel of who you are. It's in your being.
Mm-hmm.
But then you come into a moment like you had, where you have all this awareness, and you're kind of brought to reality. I do feel like that can kind of kneecap growth, or it can create head trash of like those two things can't coexist or whatnot. Um, unpack that a little bit. Like you big belief in this growth without compromise. Like,
Yeah,
what do you
yeah.
mean by that?
Um, so let's unpack this through kind of this framework we use. Every business that starts, every nonprofit, every organization, the very first stage you're in is what we call early struggle. It's just like, it kind of sucks. Like you're trying to figure out how to sell something, how do we price it? You know, your number one goal when you're in early struggle, and if anybody's watching at that, it's like, just go sell some stuff. Go figure out your profitable, sustainable niche. It tends to be somebody who's kind of visionary, and then maybe another doer, a couple of doers. We call it operators. Like, it's a visionary and a few doers maybe. And like, just go sell some painting jobs, figure it out, deliver on your promise. That's all your goal is then. The next stage is what we would call the fun stage. It doesn't always feel fun in the moment, but you're winning. Maybe you're winning bids from a bigger competitor. You start making some money. You're growing gangbusters, 20, 30, 40, 50, 200% growth can happen because you're starting at like nothing. So you can grow like that. Maybe you can hire some people. Maybe you first start funding like a retirement account, or you buy a house or an investment property. Like, it's fun. We're out of breath, but we're winning. The problem is growth leads to complexity. See, when you start figuring out how to sell your thing, you start attracting quite a bit of business, and at some point it's going to break. And what I mean by that is you're going to outgrow your systems. You're going to drop a ball. You're going to upset a client. You're going to have to send a crew back to go, I don't know, like redo the job because you picked the wrong color because you forgot. I mean, I'm making up what might happen in your space, but it's like, no, they said this and they said eggshell finish and you did satin, and they're like, I'm not paying you 20 grand. You need to redo it. And you're like, oh crap. You lose a key employee. Somebody quits to compete against you. They take the client list. Like, at some point in every business, the problem is growth is going to, like, you can only grow so far before you're going to hit whitewater. So think of whitewater like you're, going along. Maybe we're going downstream. It feels good. We're just paddling, and then like, bam, it feels like an existential crisis in your business. You're like, I don't know if we're going to make payroll. I forgot about withholding for taxes. Like, there's all these things that can happen that are a byproduct of you outgrowing your systems. And you have to choose at that point. You have to choose, am I going to push through and basically build a business that can be scalable and sustainable to get to the next stage called predictable success? Or the other choice is, do I go back to a lifestyle business? What I mean by a lifestyle business is, maybe it's, I sell some jobs, I got a few subs who do it, I can make X amount. I don't know what X amount is in your business, but I can make X amount. I can coach my kids baseball, and that is a valid option. And so that's not really the teams that Olive works with. You guys work with people that want to grow, but it's fine to say, I'm going to choose to just run a little, like a lifestyle practice of a business. However, if you want to keep growing, if that's in your heart, if it's the passion, if you see some potential, the only way to do it is systems, processes, framework. But if you can get through it, the next stage is called predictable success. The idea of predictable success is if I step on the accelerator, the car goes forward. If I push harder, it goes faster. Like I know that if we go pay for X amount of marketing and X amount of door knocking and canvassing, we're going to get X number of bids. Out of those bids, through our defined sales process, we're going to get X number of sales. From those sales, I use our software, and they're going to go, like I know if this, then I need to hire for that. If I do that, then I need this. That that is actually, you can get to a spot that's almost infinitely scalable, and it doesn't lead to burnout because it's bigger than one person. It's bigger than white knuckling, and it's reliant on the right processes and systems. The challenge is it is a lot of work to go from basically the fun stage through Whitewater into predictable success. And so people just need to decide which do they want to do. Like, but so when I go growth without compromise, backing up to that is essentially it was posed to me, well, do you just want to be a fat and happy financial advisor and have a lifestyle business, or do you want to grow something great? Like, and now here's the thing. If we do this, you're going to have a lot of sacrifice and a lot of time away from your family, but it's going to be worth it. Now, if you just want to do that, like, and everything inside of me, my bells are ringing going, that's bullcrap. Like, I don't think you have to choose. I don't believe you have to compromise between growth and like honoring my number one covenant of my wife and my marriage and that stuff. But what we do believe is you have to choose to say, I'm defiantly unwilling to sacrifice my marriage and my family. So, like, if I can't grow with keeping this intact, I ain't going to do it. But I'm here to say, like, you can grow still a great business. It requires it getting bigger than you. It requires moving from founder to leader. And that's the other part. The other part that happens at Whitewater is what we call the founder's gap. So, it's when you were pretty much chief, cook and bottle washer. And then you probably hire some people by accident, just to, it might be some of your buddies. You hire them to like do some side work, and then eventually they're working full time for you. And then it's like, you wake up and you're like, I didn't even want to have all these team members. But that transition from founder to leading a team is a low point in the business. Like, you're kind of like, I can't do it all. Stuff feels like it's breaking. Is it even worth it? And that's the other part of that inflection point of Whitewater is, do I just go back to fun? Like, do I just go back to me and four guys, or do we try to grow this to something different? And not everybody wants to make, the shift but systems, processes, frameworks is the only way to do it if you want to still, value what probably matters most to you.
How about like that decision point? I want to talk about that because I think too that gets into even some of the motivation. I think the people that I've seen successfully navigate the Whitewater is they make that decision, and part of the ingredients of that decision is kind of some clarity on like the why.
Yeah.
And then to be fair, I think the lifestyle, honestly, as time goes on, I value and appreciate that lifestyle business like more and more. Partly I'm in a season with, I have 5 kids from 8 to 2 months old. So, like what that, but I've seen people just living an amazing life because their why is very clear that is the best for them. The other thing that a nuance here is there's seasons of life as well. Right. So, like hanging out, like not pushing through Whitewater, kind of strategically deciding, when to do that. But I don't know, is there any kind of frameworks, or if you're trying to help somebody decide, like, do I want to push through Whitewater, or is this like, should I kind of hang out where I am? How do we make that decision? Like, how do we think through that?
Yeah, I think you made some really good, I don't have a framework for that. necessarily. I am someone that kind of likes doing business with people. So, um, out of a byproduct of like wanting to partner with some amazing people headed the same direction, like we almost just had to do a business that was bigger than one person to make room for all of us, and because it was like more fun to build something bigger than smaller. But I think there's tremendous value in being clear about what your priorities are. So now I'm at a stage, my youngest is almost 10. I got three girls, just about 10, 12, and 14. They're at school all day. Um, like I can go crush it during the day. And part of our deal is I tend to um, drop them off at school. I'll bring them, and that's part of our deal. So like 3, 4 days a week, at least I bring them to school. Family dinners are a big deal to me. So I'm still cognizant of what can I grow and honor those commitments, and realizing that I'm only 8 years removed from all of my kids being out of the house. And so at that point, like I'm still not 50 and I've got a lot of road in front of me. So it doesn't mean like I'm choosing to just grind it out, white knuckle. I think getting really important about, or really clear about your stage of life, where you're at, what matters to you. Um, I look back with regret of like, I literally left, my wife with our first baby at the hospital, daughter in the NICU, to go speak at a seminar because duty called. And like, what the frick? Like, what an idiot. Like, I cannot believe that nobody challenged me at that time. We learn from something. I go like, it's okay to take a breath. It's okay to pause. So like, it isn't an either or. The other question I guess I would ask is like, why do you want to grow that? Like, is it just, is it, I'm, I think at some point I wanted more than enough to just take care of my family so I could be more generous, so that, we could make a bigger difference. Some of your partners support a few incredible organizations that I'm close to, and like I get to see that, and that only happens out of the outflow of growing something that was bigger than just enough to take care of them. So I don't have a framework other than to go, hey, seasons are all right. Like my seasons are still going to shift. I say no to cool stuff all the time because it doesn't fit with our family. So keep that stuff central.
Love that. Um, Talk a little bit about systems and soul. This is another framework. Like maybe just introduce us to what systems and soul is.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so one, if you were to want to know basically the health of your business, we look at 6 different areas. From are you all moving at the same pace? Are you clear on the vision? Okay, system, think framework. EOS around the Aleph world, you guys use EOS or traction a lot. Fabulous framework. Thinking about having weekly L10s, like having a weekly meeting that makes sure we keep the main thing the main thing. If you're a founder like me, you're probably this visionary that's kind of a squirrel chaser. You have 6 ideas per day. Like we need a spot and a framework to run that on, or we're going to run over people in our business, or we're going to be a little ADHD scattered. So I love the EOS framework. Like System and Soul has a lot of that. Weekly meetings, get out of your business quarterly to work on your business. So we need to get out of it to work on it. I mean, we need to slow down to speed up. Setting clear goals and vision. Like, how about this? Like, what makes you different? I know enough from working with the board to know some of what makes Paris Painting, kind of the home-based company, like they know what's unique and where nobody can touch them in specific like mid-century or older homes. Like nobody can touch them in that niche, and you've identified that. So you start to like, you work on the business, you get clear about it. The soul part is saying, hey, what kind of place do I want to be? Like, what kind of culture do I want to create? Do I want one that's just breakneck chasing success, or do we want to have some fun and, you know, do we want to invest together and do cool stuff? Do we want to travel? Like, so the soul component is, uh, you know, I'll just say it this way, like for your employees, for your team members, if you're a founder out there, you know, you might think that what keeps people is just the paycheck. It's X number of dollars per hour, or however you guys compensate folks. I'll tell you that is one of only six different, there's six different, we call it dimensions of compensation. Everything from psychological, do I think my work matters? Do I feel supported? Are you giving me the flexibility? Like, hey, if you told me I could never bring my kids to school, like my wife's going to be bringing them to school and taking them home, I'm going to say no to that job, even if it pays a ton of money, because that's something that matters to us at this point. You might have a single mom that works for you that needs to be able to get out of work at 3 o'clock so she can go pick up the kids. Like it isn't always about the paycheck. It's getting to know your people, what drives them, what motivates them. Um, so on the soul side, with every one of our team members as we grew, we got to know what was driving them. Like, you know, they don't care about your new car. They don't care about you buying a cabin. They don't care that you did some cool real estate syndication. Ooh, sweet. They're like, what's in it for me? And when you find out one of your team members has, you know, student loans and a couple of grand left on their student loans, and you can ask them like, what would they need to make? How would they, you know, and you give them a pathway and a plan to do things like pay off their loans, or the kids really want a puppy, but man, puppies are freaking $2,500. Like, and you get into their world and you empower them to go accomplish what matters to them. The soul of your business, the culture of your business is going to drive a ton of the success. So we think frameworks are super, super important, but you getting clear about what makes you tick, what makes your team tick, pouring into that is absolutely game changing.
If somebody were to, if maybe, you know, they appreciate systems, they appreciate the frameworks, they've really tried to get at that maybe the past year, 2 years or so, but they're not quite sure on the soul part. Is there I don't know, kind of a recommendation of like where to start? Like just practically,
Yeah.
is there a book you
Yeah.
would
So
point
one thing,
to?
like,
Is there an exercise or something?
you could Google us or look up tailwinds-group.com. One thing I think it's either on like the What We Do or something. There's a just a questionnaire on there about the health of your business, and uh, it's no cost. You'll get the results instantly. Like we won't pester you, but it'll actually take the six main areas of your business and it'll give you a score of where your business is at. And ideally, you know, you want to get you to like a 90%, get to like an A. You know, and I work across broad industries, right? I was like with financial advisors last week that make millions of dollars. One of them took the assessment and his score is a 54, you know, and it's like no wonder that he's burned out and like stressed, and he's looking for an exit because he doesn't know how much longer he can do it. Um, and we're coming in and going, hey, like, so I'm not an expert in the painting world. I'd say some of the people that are with your team are incredible. Even like, I'm sure there's coaches out there. There's incredible people around Aleph. If they need a, you know, time, like our team can help them out some, but it's like you're going to start with probably getting really, really clear about the kind of business you want to build. And then just put all your efforts toward that. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be a rocket ship. It's just like little efforts in the direction of your dreams over time. And if you don't quit, you're going to win. But at least do that assessment, that give them a kind of a scorecard and they can see where they're at and which area to focus on first. Sometimes it's as simple as like your team doesn't feel like you're communicating because you're off as the owner, you know, and they know you're not painting walls, but you're doing something. You seem to be busy all the time and too busy for them. Like having regular communication and weekly meetings can be like the difference between growth and like people quitting. So it can be huge for culture.
How about earlier in this conversation, you mentioned just you personally are inclined towards doing business through partnership. So just,
Yeah.
I like doing stuff with other people. It's fun. There's that element. How about maybe speak to some of the dynamics of when the culture is not 100% your say? You know, it's not just you. The what kind of place do we want to create? How, like that dynamic of, employees are feeling like they don't know, but that's not driven by your actions. It's maybe driven by your partner's actions. How do you address
Yeah.
just the dynamics of doing all of this with multiple equity owners? How does that change the game?
Yeah. So I heard, I want to answer that two ways. Like part of why I work with partners, and then some of like, there's complexity that comes with it, but how do you address it? So, um, working with multiple people, yeah, there's different ideas and skill sets and, vision. So like getting clear on what you want to build, working together, like to craft a vision of where you want to go. Um, I'll be honest, I've seen a couple times that has forced a decision point to say, do I want to continue doing it with this person or not? That is a valid option, but I'd rather know that than be stuck in a crappy partnership forever. Sorry if
Yeah.
I'm going to break up a few people. I don't know. But culture can be engineered. Okay. So there's a culture equation. Your culture equals your core values, what you stand for, core values plus your organizational habits, the stuff you do, those two things together equal culture. Okay. So if I say in my core values, I'm about, I don't know, X, Y, or Z, we're about excellence. Uh, we want part of our culture to be we're like ever growing or something, or no, like let's say, I think Aleph has one, which is like we plow the field. Basically, this idea like we yoke together. We're gonna work together on it. One of my clients, they wanted to create the kind of culture like they had a core value of extreme ownership. The culture they're creating is everyone takes out the garbage. Like they want everybody to be like the kind of place where it's everybody would pick up the garbage. Everyone would clean up. So what do you do? What kind of things do you do regularly that create a culture like that? And so they started to work backwards and say, well, I might need to demonstrate that. Like they started training on it. They started telling people to think about their business like a showroom. Hey guys, like you shouldn't have cigarette butts sitting on the ground in front of us. Like they would those kind of things. So you can engineer it. So one is getting clear on what you want to build. Two is you can actually engineer and design the kind of business you want. Business doesn't just have to happen to us; we can design it. Okay, so I would say, if you've never had the real talk about like what are we building and why are we doing this and why are we working our freaking butts off doing this thing? Like this is my number one investment of my time. Like where are we going? Y'all should do that. And if it becomes clear that there's two different visions, that's okay. Like either some messiness and separating or whatnot, or going, those are personal missions, but together the business is going to be this to fuel this personal mission and this personal mission. Also okay. So intentionality about the business, working on it. Okay, why do I partner? I'm a disaster left to my own devices. I'm incredibly strong at sales, at galvanizing a team, at motivating people to take action. I'm very good at math. I'm quick with, X, Y, and Z. You want me to do data entry into an ERP or a CRM or whatever? I am like the worst person you have ever met. So personally, like I had to realize that, and yes, I can discipline it and I can white knuckle it and I can be disciplined and choose to do it. But at some point, I needed to hire an EA, and that executive assistant ended up being kind of like my personal, made sure I actually did the stuff I promised I was going to do because I have good intentions. I'm just like on to the next thing. So one is find somebody to cover your weaknesses. The second though is I don't, EOS parlance traction. They use there's a book that the founder that Gino Wickman wrote called Rocket Fuel. Rocket Fuel talks about the relationship when you have a visionary and an integrator and they work together. So in business, the greatest thing we ever did was finding an integrator that could partner with me where I'm good. Like literally put me on a stage and speak and I'm happy. That's the number one fear of most people is public speaking. I'm like, when can I do it again? Uh, my integrators like gifting, making sure that I don't run out of money and that we have money in there and that we can pay the bills and that we can pay our team members, and making sure that the checklist that I create through my disaster of selling stuff actually gets done. But you put those together and it's far better than like what I could grow on my own. I mean, I'll just be real on numbers. Like what I did on my own could have gotten to about 2 million probably of revenue. We got to more like 15 million by having an integrator and building a team. Was it just was so much better than it could be on my own. So are there complexities with having a partner? Absolutely. Is it worth it? To me, I'm like, I can't accomplish my potential or what God's put inside me without partners. Like full stop, period.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the things, you know, my role, I kind of find opportunities for Aleph, build relationships, and then carry folks through discovery and due diligence. And all the while, we're kind of talking about, you know, Aleph, and Aleph is looked at as like a monolith because it's like Aleph is partnering with this entity. But the reality is, like, no single person built Aleph. You know, Aleph is a, you know, good size organization today, but that wasn't, you know, built by a single person. And that's something I always, that's what we are inviting people into, is our success has been through, you know, a team effort and diversifying skills and abilities and whatnot. But I like what you're saying of, even with that complexity, it's like do the work too. I hear kind of a theme here of like, if you haven't talked about this, you need to talk about this. Even to the idea that culture can be manufactured as like a high agency way of looking at it. Culture is not some kind of woo-woo thing that emerges from the ether. You know, it's like you can influence it. You can, you know, take the time to sit down and think about it. And then maybe this is in systems and soul, but like, what is that? What is the kind of maintenance part of that look like? So in culture in particular. So there's this kind of setting it, but I think a trap that people do is they do a retreat or they hire a consultant or whatever, and they do all this front end work to kind of set it. And then it like collects dust on the shelf, you know, for a year or two.
Yep.
And how do you keep it in front of you?
Great question. So yeah, having a bunch of platitudes about your core values that are even painted on a wall somewhere, like cool, they're in the conference room. Uh, if I go around, like when we're with the lead team, I'll go ask people on the team how many of the core values, or like how many core values can you name? You know, and a lot of times it's like 2 out of 5, 1 out of 5. Sometimes they're like above them on the wall, and they're like, oh yeah. Okay, so it doesn't just happen, it's intentionality. So one thing, getting intentional about what we want to build. L10s or weekly syncs, those are like the kind of weekly meetings that keep people aligned. So we recommend a cadence of quarterly, you know, working on your goals. You're looking at how you did core values wise. You're looking, are we still on track? You're looking out at your 1 year, your 3 year, your 5 year. So we encourage, and when we're with lead teams, like they're getting out of their business quarterly to work on the business. And that's to refresh and refocus, because people drift. Like we drift left to our own devices. Once a year, we look at the whole thing and we go, is that still who you are as an organization? Is that still what you want to be building? At Facebook, now Meta, early on, their motto was move fast and break stuff. Meta is not move fast and break stuff anymore. They're worth trillions of dollars. They can't afford to move like that. So values, some of that can shift as an organization matures. So once a year, we're like, hey, where are we headed? Is this still the right direction? What do we need to know? But then bringing that down, uh, if all you're doing are annual reviews with your team members, you're missing the boat. So we recommend quarterly touch points, really quarterly reviews, and we put them more into a. And actually, I just say, Hoken, you probably have access to it. I know Micah and Eric and Chet and those guys have our template for conversations around like personal development, personal roadmaps, which is getting clear and connecting with your team once a quarter to make sure you know where they're headed. Um, we have every one of our team members score themselves of how they think they're playing out the core values. And then you get to tell them how you're playing out the core values. Core values properly inflicted can inflict, properly practiced can inflict pain. It's what Patrick Lencioni says. Like core values are the core or they're not. But like if we say we're about this and you're acting this way, we're going to now manage off of that. We're going to train off of that. So you will not drift toward success. You will not drift toward health. You will not drift toward intimacy in your marriage or with God. Like a sailboat adrift is going to run up on shore. You need to set the sail. And so our way of doing that, weekly touch points, checking in with your team, weekly L10 or sync, quarterly, like your lead team or the owners getting out of the office to work on the business. And quarterly, I'm with every team member. Now, Jeff Bezos has the two pizza rule. He says you should never have a team, like you should never be directly having more. The team that reports to any one person should never be more than 2 pizzas worth. Okay, so I don't know what that is, 8 to 10 people. Beyond that, it's hard to manage more people than that. So that's when you start having multiple layers to your leadership team. But intentionality, without it, you'll drift.
I love that. And I think if this is a new exercise for people, like what you just said there is so important. And I think values can change. And that doesn't mean that you are a compromised human. It just means a business is an organism and it changes over time, and values should change. Like it's like Meta almost has a fiduciary responsibility not to have that core value anymore to its shareholders, right? Like, and so that's okay. So don't think that you need to land on the best, truest, most pure core values of all time, like today. And the other thing is, I would like less is more because even too, like when you have quarterlies, I think making your core values part of that quarterly in a meaningful way, which means finding interesting ways to think about the same few things over and over and over again. But if it's not interesting and you're just faking it because this is the part in our agenda where we talk about our core values, like that is shallow. So it's like maybe there's only really 2 core values that you deeply care about, but 2 feels too light. So I don't want to add, just do 2.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
That would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. And you just reminded me of a great thing that we did in the past, which is we would do core values shout outs. We would look for ways to catch people living out those core values. So if it was actively caring, which was one, how did somebody actively care? Well, somebody drove to Renee's home after a surgery to help do the paperwork so she could have this thing like done. She was worried, like how did we show, X, Y, or Z? Finding ways to bring them to life and shout outs. And honestly, like we would bonus people who got recognized living out the values. You want to get more people doing it? Catch them doing what you want to do and give them a check, like give them a Visa gift card, send them to a nice steak dinner, like whatever it is that motivates them. But make it real, make it alive, and help find memorable ways for people to think about it.
That's great. Skip, this has been awesome, man. I really, really appreciate transparency and just the realness that you bring to these topics. I think that is why I wanted to talk to you. I think there's lots of conversations around frameworks and structures and stuff like that, but I think the qualitative element of like the meaning, the depth behind that makes all the difference to actually turn a profit on those frameworks. So I really, really appreciate your approach. Have to do this again on the show sometime.
It'd be fun. Before I go, I've gotten to know some of the board for a long time, but you know go like around the table when they're normally sitting there, Micah and then Chet and Eric and Alex and Jason. It's like the people that came together to work on a mission bigger than one person and the heart behind it. Honored to be here just because you all represent one of the coolest groups of entrepreneurs that I've ever met, and I've gotten to see really a lot of groups. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it, Skip. Take care.
Thanks, Oken.